So Nikon have just announced a very interesting new camera, the ZFc, and we had a chance to check it out ahead of the announcement. Now, we're going to talk about the specs and all that fun stuff, but the most interesting part of this camera is definitely the way it looks and the actual experience you can have while using the camera. This is very apparent as soon as you lay eyes on it. It's very obviously inspired by an older style, kind of retro style, cameras like the celebrated SLR film camera, the Nikon FM2, but it's not just about the way it looks. The actual dials and the overall experience of using the camera absolutely evoke that old film camera feel, but obviously with a lot of modern touches in there as well. So for example, I particularly loved using the dials on top of the camera to adjust shutter speed and ISO, and then there's this small screen to show your f-stop for your aperture as well, which I really like. And then you've also got the round viewfinder and the classic Nikon logo, so it all feels very natural, and like I said before, it evokes that older, more sort of retro feel. But then on the back of the camera, you've got a lot of modern touches that you'd expect from a present-day mirrorless camera. So for example, you've got the ergonomic buttons, the vari-angle touchscreen, which I really like, and having it as a vari-angle screen feels fantastic and extremely usable, and plays into another aspect of this camera, which is content creation. It's also pretty small and surprisingly light as well, coming in at about 445 grams with the battery and the SD card. And all that makes this a great everyday camera. It's actually ideal for hybrid shooters and content creators as well, especially since that vari-angle screen allows you to film yourself and see yourself while filming. So let's talk a little bit about the specs of this camera, because we haven't mentioned those yet. So we're looking at similar specs to the Z50, but we have got a few differences here. So first up, it's sporting a 20.9 megapixel DX sensor. It can shoot 11 frames a second, and we're looking at a hybrid AF system with 209 AF points and IAF for humans and animals. So all pretty decent in the photo department. I can imagine this being, like I said before, a fantastic everyday camera. Travel photography, this is going to be great for, and just keeping things light, but still really good. Now, video-wise, it's a similar sort of thing. It has everything you would probably expect. 4K up to 30 frames a second, full HD up to 120 frames a second for that lovely slow motion. So nothing too crazy, but it's certainly everything you would need as a content creator or a vlogger. And to be honest, there's actually a lot that you can do with these specs. So spec-wise, it ticks a lot of boxes for that everyday camera feel, that content creation kind of thing, which is great. But let's get back to talking about the actual camera, the feel, the look of it, because ultimately that is probably the most striking thing about this camera. So it takes the same battery as the Z50, the EN-EL25, which is decent. Connection-wise, we've got the USB-C, we've got HDMI micro connector, which if I'm honest, I didn't expect to be in there, a 3.5mm mini jack, and the latest snap bridge as well. There is only one SD card slot, and I know some people are going to hate that. I'm personally not too bothered, because I don't think this is going to be used for professional jobs really. I think the kind of situations where you need those dual SD card slots and you need that backup, I don't think this is really designed for, but I totally understand if you feel differently about the single SD card slot. But let's talk about the screen and the EVF as well. So that EVF, it's a round viewfinder like I mentioned earlier to match that kind of retro aesthetic. It's a 2.36 million dot OLED and it's decent. I only got to test it out in the Nikon offices, but it seemed absolutely fine to me. It's not going to blow anyone away, but I don't think that's the point, if I'm totally honest. Now the screen, obviously is a vari-angle touchscreen, which is the first vari-angle screen that we've seen on a Z series camera, is also absolutely fine. Again, it's difficult to tell too much in the indoor office environment where we were able to use the camera. It certainly didn't put me off, but I think it's probably also not going to light anyone's world on fire. But again, I don't think that's the point of it. I don't think it does anything wrong. I think it does exactly what it needs to do, and it keeps the price from getting too high, which I think is also important. So who do I think that this camera is for? Well, I think, to be honest, it has a very wide appeal. Realistically, like I said earlier, I don't think it's going to be used by professionals for professional use, although in a pinch you could absolutely get some decent results with this. But as an everyday camera, as a travel option, or even just as a lightweight option for professionals who maybe don't want to take their heavier cameras out on a less formal photo trip, this is absolutely perfect. And it doesn't hurt that it's seriously good looking as well. It's the kind of camera you just bring out with you because it almost works as a fashion accessory as well as a camera. And it's so light that it's just not a problem taking it out and about. It's also definitely worth mentioning how fun it is to use this camera. The dials, the feel of it really makes you feel the photography as you're doing it, and definitely retains the fun. while I was checking this out, there were so many people that I could think of in my life that would love this camera, and it would be absolutely perfectly suited for them. From casual enthusiasts right up to kind of semi-pros and even pros who might want a lightweight, fun option to take out and about. Now, of course, we're hoping to get our hands on a full production sample as soon as possible to bring you a full review, but in the meantime, there's a link in the description to see the camera for yourself. If you do have any questions, pop them down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. I'll see you next time, and as always, thanks for watching.